What if someone right now is making decisions about your climate, your sunlight, your rain, your snow, and you were never asked? Not your government, not your scientists, a private individual with billions of dollars and a plan. This is not a theory. The documents are public. The funding is traceable. The experiments have already happened. What I'm going to show you today is a chain of real events, officially acknowledged programs, billionaire-funded science projects, and a pattern of extreme weather that is becoming harder and harder to dismiss as coincidence. Stay with me for 10 minutes. By the end, you won't need to believe anything. You just need to look at what's already confirmed. Geoengineering. It's a real scientific term. It refers to large-scale, deliberate interventions in the Earth's climate system. And for decades, it was discussed only in academic papers, behind closed doors, at conferences that didn't make headlines. There are two main categories. The first is carbon dioxide removal, pulling CO2 out of the atmosphere. The second, and this is the one we need to talk about, is solar radiation management, SRM. The goal of SRM is simple and terrifying. Block sunlight from reaching the Earth's surface. Reflect it back into space. Cool the planet down. How do you do that? The most widely discussed method is stratospheric aerosol injection, SAI. You load aircraft with reflective particles, usually sulfur dioxide or calcium carbonate, and you spray them into the upper atmosphere. The particles scatter incoming sunlight. Less sunlight hits the ground. The planet cools. In theory. Now, who decides when to do this? Who chooses how much sunlight the 7 billion people on Earth receive? Who controls the dial? That question has no satisfying answer, and that is exactly the problem. Let's talk about Bill Gates, not as a villain, as a fact, because what Bill Gates has funded is not rumor, it is public record. Gates has been a known financial backer of the stratospheric-controlled perturbation experiment, SCoPEx. This is a Harvard University project designed to test whether calcium carbonate particles sprayed into the stratosphere could reflect sunlight and cool the Earth. This is real. Harvard confirmed it. Gates confirmed his funding. The project lead, Professor David Keith, has spoken about it in dozens of interviews and academic papers. The stated goal is climate emergency response. If the planet heats beyond a critical threshold, SRM could act as an emergency brake. That sounds reasonable on the surface. But here's what gets left out of that conversation. Number 1. Termination shock. If you start blocking sunlight at scale, you cannot simply stop. Stopping suddenly would cause a rapid temperature spike far worse than the original problem. You would be locked in, permanently. Number 2. No international framework governs this. The side effects on weather systems, monsoon patterns, agriculture, and rainfall are deeply unknown and deeply contested in the scientific community itself. And yet a private individual with no democratic mandate has been funding experiments toward making this a reality. That is not conspiracy. That is the situation we are actually in. In 2021, Gates gave an interview where he described his vision, and I want to be precise here. He said the problem of climate change might require interventions that reflect solar energy. He has described geoengineering as a Plan B, his words. In his own book, How to Avoid a Climate Disaster, he discusses solar geoengineering as a potential tool, while acknowledging the serious risks. Now let's go back. Because this didn't start with Bill Gates, and it didn't start with Harvard. The foundation of what we're talking about was laid decades ago, in a place most people have never heard of, a remote facility in Gakona, Alaska, called HAARP, the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, jointly funded by the U.S. Air Force, the U.S. Navy, DARPA, and the University of Alaska. Its official purpose, ionospheric research, studying the upper atmosphere by beaming high-powered radio frequency energy into it. For years, questions about HAARP were dismissed as fringe thinking. But here is what is documented. HAARP's own technical documents, which are publicly available, describe its capability to heat sections of the ionosphere. The ionosphere is a layer of the atmosphere that influences radio communications, GPS systems, and plays a direct role in global weather pattern development. In 2014, the United States Senate confirmed that the Air Force was shutting down HAARP. Senator Lisa Murkowski asked in a Senate hearing why the military was abandoning the facility. The Air Force told her it was too expensive to operate. That answer satisfied nobody, because facilities worth hundreds of millions of dollars don't simply get abandoned because of operating costs. The facility was later transferred to the University of Alaska Fairbanks, where it continues to operate today. Now, I am not telling you that HAARP is a weather weapon. What I am telling you is this: a government-funded program was built specifically to heat and manipulate the ionosphere. It operated in secrecy for decades. When asked about it directly, officials gave vague and inconsistent answers, and experiments on the upper atmosphere, the same atmosphere that determines our weather, were conducted without any public debate. That is not a theory. That is the official record, and HAARP is not unique. Now, the mainstream explanation for all of this is climate change. And climate change is real. I am not arguing otherwise. But here is the question the mainstream narrative doesn't answer cleanly. Why is the pattern of disruption so sudden, so geographically inconsistent, and so precisely extreme? Climate change models predicted gradual warming with regional variations. What we are seeing in some cases are targeted, violent, one-time weather events in places that have never experienced anything like them. That deserves scrutiny. China openly admitted to cloud seeding, using silver iodide particles fired into the atmosphere to artificially induce rain, across 5.5 million square kilometers of territory. This is not disputed. China's own state meteorological agency confirmed it. The UAE has an active cloud seeding program. Russia uses it. The United States has used it since the 1940s. Artificial rain is not science fiction. It has been an operational tool of governments for decades. The real problem is that the conversation about whether it should happen is being had in private, by billionaires, military research departments, and academic institutions, without any meaningful public voice. Bill Gates has more influence over global climate science funding than most governments. He funds the research. He funds the scientists. He funds the communications about the research. That is a level of unelected power over a planetary system that should make every single person uncomfortable, regardless of his intentions. The questions that need to be asked are these. 1. Who gave private interests the authority to experiment with the systems that give us food, water, and breathable air? 2. If stratospheric aerosol injection is being tested even at small scale, what are the downstream effects on monsoon systems, on the global water cycle, on crop yields in the developing world? 3. Why is there still no international treaty governing geoengineering when weapons, space, and nuclear energy all have international frameworks? 4. Who benefits if the planet cools artificially? Not equally. Some regions become more habitable, some become deserts. Those decisions get made somewhere, by someone. The next time you see an unusual weather event, unprecedented snow, record floods, out-of-season storms, don't just accept the first explanation you're offered. Ask who is studying the atmosphere. Ask who is funding that research. Ask who has the technical capability to influence what you're seeing. And ask who decided they had that right.